Alright, in episode 1, we talked about networks and information, how secrets get collected, stored, and sometimes leaked out. But there's a moment in almost every major scandal when everything changes. An arrest, an investigation, a central figure suddenly at the center of the storm. And just when the public expects answers, the story stops. Not resolved, not explained, just interrupted. In the cards today, the spread isn't about the beginning of a scandal. It's about what happens when the person at the center of all of it is suddenly removed from the equation. Because when we lay these cards out together, they don't show closure. They show a story that ends before it's finished. Alright guys, so welcome to Don't Drink That. I've got another episode for you today. It's going to be part 2 of last week's episode. And so it is heavy. It is a heavy topic, but I have another episode coming this week to kind of lighten the mood a little bit, so just stick with me. But in today's card combination, here's the hypothetical spread. Criminal investigation, cover up. So there's 4 cards. Individually, they represent moments we've all seen in the headlines. Investigations, arrests, sudden deaths, and public suspicion. Together, they tell a very specific narrative. A system prepared for exposure. And then something interrupts the process. Not proven, not solved, interrupted. This isn't about claiming intent, it's about looking at what kind of story these cards tell when placed in sequence. So first you have your criminal investigation. So in the game, this card represents the moment when private information becomes public scrutiny. Authorities step in, questions get asked, records get requested. An investigation changes everything. Because once an investigation begins, information that was once private enters official channels. Documents are gathered. Testimonies are recorded. Connections get mapped. But for the public, this is the moment of anticipation. People expect answers. They expect accountability. They expect a chain reaction. So the investigation phase is where hope peaks, okay? Because it feels like the system is finally turning inward. But investigations don't exist in a vacuum. They affect networks. They affect reputations. They affect power structures. And when a central figure becomes the focus of a major investigation, everything around them shifts, which leads to the next card, jail. The jail card represents containment. A person at the center of a scandal is now physically separated from the outside world, from a narrative perspective. This should be the moment where information begins to flow outward, but because once someone is in custody, people assume they'll talk, testify, and then reveal. In the public imagination, jail equals disclosure. It's the point where people believe the full story will finally come out. But in this card game's symbolic logic, jail isn't just containment. It's also isolation. So, communication becomes limited, access becomes controlled, and then information slows down. And when a major case centers on one individual, that individual becomes the bottleneck. If they talk, everything changes. If they don't, nothing does. Which makes the next card in the spread one of the most unsettling in the deck. The Assa card. So, the Assa card in the game doesn't always mean a literal planned attack. Symbolically, it represents the sudden removal of a key figure. A person who holds information. A person who connects the networks. A person whose continued presence would keep the story moving. When this card appears after jail, the narrative becomes one of interruption. The public expects testimony. Instead, the story stops. And when a central figure disappears suddenly, questions multiply. not necessarily about who did what, but about what information was lost with them. Because when someone at the center of a scandal is no longer there to answer questions, the narrative fragments. Some people believe everything, some believe nothing, most are left with uncertainty. And uncertainty creates a vacuum, which is where the final card enters on this 4-card lineup. So then you have your cover-up stage. Card represents not necessarily a coordinated conspiracy, but a breakdown in clarity. Missing information, conflicting reports, unanswered questions. When major events happen suddenly, institutions move quickly to stabilize. Statements are released, reports are filed, investigations close. But if the public feels like key questions remain unanswered, the perception of a cover-up emerges. Not always because one exists, but because the narrative feels incomplete. A story or the cover-up card in the game doesn't show villains in dark rooms. It shows confusion. And it shows a story that stops before reaching a clear conclusion. And once that perception takes hold, trust becomes difficult to rebuild. So, when you put the cards together, let's look at the full combination. Criminal investigation, plus the jail card, plus a second cover-up. This tells a story about a case that begins with exposure and ends with interruption. An investigation starts, a central figure is contained, then suddenly removed. Questions remain, the public expects a domino effect. Instead, they get a halt. The cards don't show resolution, they show a narrative that stops mid-sentence. Information that might have clarified everything never fully emerges. And over time, the story becomes less about what happened and more about what might have been known. This is why this resonates with people. So, when a major case ends abruptly, public trust takes a hit. People don't just want justice. They want to understand. They want to know how systems operate. Who was connected to whom? What information existed? When those answers never fully arrive, people fill the gaps with theories. Not always because they want to believe them, but because the story feels unfinished. And that's why the card combination resonates. It reflects a pattern people recognize: exposure, containment, interruption, and uncertainty. Alright guys, I just want to take a quick break to share this with you. So W Energy, my new sponsor, sent me a care package. This is pure energy drink supplement. Contains coffee bean extract. It's jitterless. Flavor is retro sherbet. I'm so excited that I wanted to try it on camera for you guys. So check this out. Chainsaw Man cup. This was straight from Dubby, along with this awesome Dubby hat. And as you can see, be better guys. Alright. Now, discount code Don't Drink That will be down below. Go to dubby.gg and get your energy supplement today. Only 150 milligrams of caffeine. Oh, that is delicious. Tastes just like the push pop when you were a kid. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Alright, so now we get into the damage control, okay? When information comes out, people expect explosions, arrests, confessions, names everywhere. But in reality, major document releases rarely create instant chaos. Instead, they create something quieter: confusion. Fragmented headlines, competing narratives, and sometimes it feels like the system doesn't collapse. It just absorbs it all. So, we're going to get into another card combination. So, we're laying out, asking what the story tells, hypothetically, of course, about what happens after sensitive information becomes public. Not accusations, not claims, just symbolism. Because when you put these cards together, they don't describe a scandal, they describe damage control. So, in this second part of the hypothetical combination, you have whistleblowers, media, government, and then spin control. So you have 4 cards, four forces that often appear whenever major information leaks into public view. Let's walk through this narrative and what it suggests. So you have your Whistleblowers card. And in the game, this card represents insiders who release information. People who step outside the system and reveal what they've seen. Sometimes it's documents, sometimes testimony, sometimes leaks. Whistleblowers disrupt controlled environments. They introduce uncertainty. And once information leaves a closed circle, it can fully be put back. Or it can't fully be put back, I'm sorry. But here's the key. Whistleblowers don't control what happens after the release. They only control the moment of exposure. Once information is public, other forces take over, which brings us to the next card. We have media. So this media card represents narrative framing, not just reporting, but interpretation. When large document dumps happen, people don't read everything themselves. They rely on summaries, headlines, commentary. Now, mind you, I've read a lot of these files, but I'm a truth seeker, so there's a difference. But media acts as a filter. Not necessarily malicious, just inevitable. There's too much information for everyone to process directly, so narratives form quickly. What matters? What doesn't? What's confirmed? What's speculation? So different outlets emphasize different angles. Some stories dominate the cycle, others fade within days. In the card game's symbolic logic, media doesn't erase information. It prioritizes it. And prioritization shapes perception. So then you have government officials. So this is the third card. This card represents institutions responsible for investigations, statements, and legal responses. When major files are released, people expect immediate consequences, but real-world systems move slowly. Investigations take time. Evidence must meet legal standards. Jurisdiction also matters. Public expectation is fast. Institutional process is slow. The gap creates frustration, and during that gap, interpretations multiply. Some people see delay in due process. Others see delay as protection. The card doesn't tell us which is true. It just shows that when institutions respond slowly, public trust gets tested. So that's what brings us to the final card in this set. Is the spin control. So in the game, this represents narrative management, public relations, statements, clarifications, and reframing. Whenever sensitive information emerges, multiple groups attempt to shape how that information is understood. Lawyers issue statements. Organizations distance themselves from this stuff. Commentators debate implications. Spin control isn't always deception. Sometimes it's just defense. But the effect is the same. The story becomes complicated. Multiple interpretations compete. Attention shifts rapidly. In the original documents, the raw information gets buried under analysis. In the card game's symbolic narrative, spin control doesn't erase events. It dilutes clarity. So we're going to put these four cards together and look at the full combination. Whistleblowers, media, government officials, and spin control. This creates a cycle. Information leaks, media frames it, institutions respond slowly, narratives multiply, and the result? Not a single explosion, but a gradual diffusion. Public attention divides, focus shifts, new stories emerge, and over time, even major revelations become background noise. Again, this is symbolic storytelling through cards. but it mirrors a pattern people often feel they're witnessing whenever large-scale documents are released. So this is why this particular card combination resonates with file disclosures. Whenever major files tied to a powerful network enter public conversation, expectations skyrocket. People expect everything to change overnight. But systems are complex. Legal thresholds are high. Media cycles move fast. Public attention is limited. So instead of a clean resolution, there's often a long period of ambiguity. And the ambiguity is where this card combination lives, not in certainty, in uncertainty. Okay, so the card game doesn't predict events. It reflects anxieties about power, information, and control. This combination tells a story about what happens after secrets surface. Not collapse, not instant justice, but a slow, complicated process where truth, perception, and narrative all compete. In the next episode, we're going to explore a different angle. What happens when public attention moves on, but the system doesn't? Because the next card combination is about distraction, fatigue, and the long game. Until then, remember guys, sometimes the most powerful response to a revelation isn't denial, it's time. So, I hope you guys like this video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Spread the word. Tell your friends. Help me out here. But just remember, guys, this is all for entertainment purposes only. This is not to be taken literally. And until next time, guys, don't drink that. I love you. Peace.